All right, everyone. Thursday morning. How are you all doing after Celtic turned on the style? Our B team thumped Aberdeen 5-1 at Pittodrie. Apologies, we're a few minutes late. We're actually 5 minutes late. So apologies if you have been waiting on us. We're here now, though. John, hello.
Hello, good morning, Hamish. I was on late last night as well, so I'm pulling a double shift on this match, but I'll try not to repeat myself from what I was talking about with Ryan last night.
I've not seen that video, so there's a fair chance that I bring up all the same talking points from last night. Have you heard from Ryan? Did he get back up the road all right?
Yeah, he's fine. He's all good. There was a late shift for him. He was at Pittodrie and he had to drive back down to Glasgow. He gets home late, but he's off today, so he'll be fully recovered for the weekend and trophy day.
Good stuff. Okay, let's just begin with a quick word from our sponsor. This Celtic Way video is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Glasgow, Edinburgh and the surrounding area, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. We also have our Martin O'Neill offer still going strong, John.
Yeah, this is running until the end of June 1st. So subscribers, if you're subscribed as at the end of June 1st, you will be automatically entered into this draw. New subscribers and current subscribers, a chance to win a lunch with Martin O'Neill next month, sit down for a chat, have a bit to eat. I mean, the guy's iconic. He's a legend. He's won European Cups as a player. He was superb as a Celtic manager. I would love to pick his brains over lunch. So it's a fantastic prize. It's probably something you'll never get to experience in your life again. So it's a quid for 6 months access to the celticway.co.uk as well, which is very welcome. So take a look at that if that sounds like your kind of thing.
Is there a question in particular that you'd want to ask Martin O'Neill?
No, I'd just like to thank Martin O'Neill for oddly the game that sticks out in my head, and I know there's so many big games, Celtic games under Martin O'Neill, but I saw my first league title in person. I wasn't there in 1998. I wasn't in the stadium in 1998 when Celtic stopped 10 in a row. So my first league title win that I saw was in the 2001 season, and Tommy Johnson scored against St Mirren in a 1-0 victory. It was not a classic match by any means, but for some reason it's a match that sticks in my mind and is a formative experience in my supporting of Celtic. So I would just like to thank him for that title win in that season, which was magical.
Yes, great times. We're living through great times as well, everyone. Okay, we're going to chat a bit about last night's game. Just to put it out there, you don't know this. This looks all normal to you, but I can't actually see your comments today, which is a great thing. Nah, I'm joking. That's harsh. I do enjoy seeing your comments. Some of you coming in the right-hand side of the screen. So John's in charge of that today. So John, you can be picking out certain comments from people on the live stream. But I really enjoyed that game. I really enjoyed the performance. I think there's so many positives to take away. I know it was one game, but so many players that I feel like I'm more excited to see next season now.
Yeah, it's always good. I'm quite a fan of giving French players the opportunity to impress. Especially when these games and the schedule gets down to these one games a week, it all becomes a little bit predictable in terms of the team selection, the performance, and kind of what we're going to see from Celtic. So bringing in a bit of fresh blood always livens things up. And I thought the guys who did come into the team against Aberdeen did particularly well. So it's always good to see that. I thought just Celtic were excellent throughout, just in the way they were distributing the ball and really picking at Aberdeen. And Aberdeen went man to man on them, and they were just pinging it from wing to wing, finding those little pockets of space, the exploits in the Aberdeen defence. And even before Celtic scored, I thought they were well in control of the match, and just really asserted that authority in the second half, having gotten themselves ahead just before the interval.
The pitch was really good, wasn't it? And that made such a big difference. Usually when we go away from home, quite often it's a difficult surface. But I just thought the team were incredibly relaxed last night. Aberdeen were pressing us, but were playing out under pressure really well. And yeah, I mean, I guess we could run through the team and give certain thoughts. I'm thinking you'll have done that a fair bit last night, but bring that up.
Yeah, Pete McGee coming in straight away. My take on it, and Nawrocki was great. I've always liked him. Yang and Forrest were excellent. Special mention for young McCardle, who looks like he has a real future. I think it was most pleasing, for me, there was lots of little subplots going throughout the game, Hamish, but I just thought it was great to see Johnny Kenny get on the score sheet and get his first goal for Celtic, because that is something that can hang around a player. And from the chat of Brendan Rodgers after the match, talking about how he's progressed well over the last few months in training, I could see Johnny Kenny sticking around as part of a squad role next year. I think Rodgers might see him as that player who can maybe give 20 minutes here or there. Not to say that Celtic won't sign another striker, that's not what I'm saying, but I think in terms of that third striker role, that young striker role that Brendan Rodgers talked about as long ago as last summer, that the kind of role that you wanted Rocco Vata to perform, I think that is now Johnny Kenny's role in the Celtic team over the next 12 to 18 months. So it was good to see him get that goal, and I thought he took that goal really well. Just showed excellent instincts to get in front of the defender, and it's a really nice little finish. It's a little bit harder than it even looked. It was just effortless the way he stuck it in. So I was delighted to see him get that goal.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing was him scoring. I think if he hadn't have scored, it would still have been a fairly good performance. There was a couple of times in the first half I felt he got into good areas and maybe was a little bit indecisive, but I think that'll come over time. But certainly for that finish for the goal, it's a funny one as the third striker, because, as you say, Brendan Rodgers has spoken about that a fair bit, and his ideal scenario is having two first-choice strikers and a young third striker. He's been very open about that. I don't know if Daizen Maeda fits into that at all. I guess we'll wait and see, or whether he's kind of an outlier and he's viewed as a left winger. But I do think the third choice striker role is good for Kenny. But if you took that part away, I do feel like a loan move would be great for him next year. Like, loan him again. Yeah. But loan him to another Premiership club. So what I'm saying really is I'm quite relaxed. Whether he stays at the club and, as you say, picks up the odd 20, 30 minutes here, maybe, through injuries or through resting players or whatever. But also if we were to loan him out to a team like Aberdeen, for example, a team that's maybe going to be in Europe in the Scottish Premiership next year, Hibs, for example, if they were after a forward, I really think he could thrive, and I kind of hold out decent hopes for him potentially in the future being a player who can really contribute for Celtic. I think he has something. I like his temperament as well, his post-match interview, level-headed, talking about guys like James Forrest, learning from him and Ida and Maeda. So yeah, I quite like Kenny.
Yeah, and again, it's another one where it's difficult to make too many firm verdicts on, but I think everyone's liking the look of young Sean McCardle at the moment. I know you highlight that as someone you'd like to see more of in that Celtic midfield, and what we've seen 10 minutes from him, 5 minutes the other day, so it's not like we've got a firm grasp of how he could handle consistency in the Celtic team and making that next step, but the initial signs are positive in terms of the way he plays with the ball, his profile, and just he looks immediately confident in that Celtic team, which I think is a big thing for such a young player, to come in and just immediately be confident to combine with Celtic's more established players. I think speaks well for the kind of temperament that he has and the kind of ambition he has to come in and make his mark on the Celtic team. So although it's only 10 minutes from McCardle, positive signs there as well.
It's only 10 minutes, but Scottish Messi.
I'll put that in the thumbnail, Hamish, and we'll get 20,000 views.
He looks good though, doesn't he? Like, I mean, he's left-footed and very early, and it was quite an easy game to come into, I guess, because I mean, Aberdeen were toothless, I thought, especially in the second half. Like, they were so bad, but he was getting involved. The thing I loved was other players were giving him the ball, sometimes giving him the ball in difficult areas. When you have a young guy coming in, quite a lot of the time it would. Yeah, I don't know. He maybe would get the odd touch here and there in a 15 or 20 minute period. He was like the most involved player in that park when he came on. He was involved in the final goal. Play him on Saturday. Give him the final half an hour at Celtic Park on Saturday, because that's, again, I know he's already played at Celtic Park, but that's an even bigger occasion. I just think sometimes with these young players, and I know we're coming up to the end of the season, so this might be difficult, just play them. Keep playing them. Pre-season, I want to see him. He's got something. I always think with young players, you can tell quite quickly when someone's got something, and I'm very excited about him already, although it is incredibly early days. I mean, he's 17.
Yeah, he's still 17. And JJ McGarvey asking, has McCardle just come out of nowhere? Never heard much about him in the B team
Yeah.
and would always keep an eye on him. Well, I think part of the reason for that is because he's younger, so he's not been in the B team for a number of years. He's still only 17. So his breakthrough in the B team actually only came this year as well. But I think he's managed to rack up like 25 or so appearances for the B team in the Lowland League this season. Obviously, the Lowland League is finished now, so Rodgers is getting to have a closer look at some of these players. And young players do train regularly with the first team throughout the season anyway, even if they are involved in the Lowland League. So he'll have been on Rodgers' radar for the majority of the season. But as I say, the reason why he's just kind of coming from nowhere is because he's not had that chance to garner hype in the B team over 2 or 3 years, which we kind of saw with Rocco Vata in the past, etc. So he's not a name that's immediately been on a lot of fans' radars. But the fact that he's just, been thrown straight into the senior setup, despite only being 17, I think is a good sign.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers clearly likes him as a player. I mean, he watched the Glasgow Cup final recently. McCardle would have been playing in that, I assume. So maybe he saw something in that game. He also must love his temperament because, as we know with Brendan Rodgers, young players, any player, but especially young players, they have to have the right attitude. So I think very, very telling that he has kind of come from nowhere. But he's been the one in the last couple of games. I think he's the only young player, isn't he? The only B team player that's been involved in the matchday squad for the past couple of games. Certainly getting on. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I want to see him again on Saturday. Very early days, but God, that touch is really good, and the vision and awareness as well. It's imagine we had an attacker come through from the academy and light it up next season or the year after. Imagine the buzz around the club.
Yeah, I mean, it's become something of a cliche in terms of what Rodgers says when he talks about personality, and that goes back to the days of that Liverpool documentary that was on Channel 5 once upon a time, where he would talk about personality a lot, and people would take more out of that than perhaps is merited. But he's been talking about personality with regards to McCardle quite a lot, and I think he just, like you just said, the reason I'm bringing this up is because it kind of backs up what you were saying there, is that Brendan Rodgers just likes the way he carries himself, and he likes the way he goes about his business. I think he's quite a quiet individual. We've got an interview with McCowan going up later tonight on the channel at 6 o'clock, just the kind of press conference thing from Pittodrie last night. And I can't give too much of that away, but he was kind of saying that he's quite a quiet guy and that he's unassuming. So he's not coming in with lots of bravado into this dressing room. He's just quietly going about his business, getting on the pitch and showing his flair and his confidence with the football rather than, talking up a big game about himself. So I guess that's Brendan Rodgers will look at that and see that that's the right fit and that's the right mentality to be a successful Celtic player. Again, this is just to qualify all of this. This is on the back of 10 minutes, so I'm not wanting to put too much pressure on McArdle's shoulders too early. There's a long way to go for him, but I agree with you. Sometimes you can just tell about a player's got something about them quite early on, and for me, the touch that McCardle has and the way he's going about his business is a good thing for me.
Not getting ahead of myself. Who is number 7 at the moment? Jota. Get rid of him with number 7. Give it to McCardle. He's earned it already. Nah, I'm excited to see him going forward. I need to say, though, Mike Nawrocki. Controversial statement for you. Mike Nawrocki's a better player than Austin Trusty. There you go. Deal with that.
Yeah. Well, that's something to chew on. And again, this is something that I saw Josh say on social media last night, that perhaps the reason Nawrocki's not played as much is because he's much better as that right-sided centre-back rather than the left-sided one, and it's much harder to displace Cameron Carter-Vickers out of the team. And I think there's something to that, because I'm looking at Mike Nawrocki and I think he's got attributes to be an excellent, consistent Celtic defender, and it's kind of almost baffling in a way of why he's not had more minutes under Brendan Rodgers. It's maybe one of those things where Rodgers just doesn't fancy him. I don't know what that's all about, but I thought he was excellent. There's potentially a pace issue there. I just thought he was very composed. Again, just bags of confidence on the ball, off the ball, physical, athletic, and I just liked the look of him. I know last night didn't mean anything in terms of like the stakes in the match, and that might be a factor in all of this, but I just enjoyed watching him play football last night. That's all I can really say.
Has he been given a fair chance, Mike Nawrocki? I know he's had a few opportunities, not this season, but previously, and he struggled at times last season. I remember him struggling at Pittodrie, but that was when the team were struggling as well. But can we honestly say he's been given a fair chance to show what he can do as a Celtic defender? My fear would be Brendan Rodgers just doesn't fancy him, and it was just a meaningless game last night. That's why he played. He only played against Rangers because I think 3 or 4 different defenders were out at that point. I think he's got something. I think he reads the game well. He's the big thing for me. He's more aggressive for me than Trusty or even potentially Liam Scales. I take your point about the right hand side thing. Could he play in the left next to Carter Vickers? I don't want Nawrocki to leave because I honestly I think there's something there. I just get the feeling that he arrived with good pedigree, playing at a good club in Legia Warsaw, who tend to win things and pressured environment, up and coming player. We paid a decent fee for him. Was it 4 million, something like that? I just want him to be given a chance at the very least in pre-season to show what he can do.
Here's a question for you, Hamish. What's people's thoughts on Yang? Definitely think there's a player in there, loads of potential to improve. Happy with his season stats. Should we loan him out to get more game time or keep? Are you in the Yang gang now, Hamish? Because you were it.
I'm just laughing. I'm just laughing because that. What's the phrase? What was the phrase that was used there? There's a player in there. That phrase is used solely for Yang, isn't it? How many people? You never hear about any other player other than Yang in recent times. There's a player in there. I think we're starting to see the player. Again, I said earlier, I think he's ready to explode next season. I honestly think there's something really positive to work with there. The big thing about Yang when he first came to the club was that he didn't score goals and he didn't assist goals. Now, every time he plays, he looks like scoring, he looks like assisting. He scores last night, he has another couple of headers in the first half. He does brilliantly in the first half for the one he cut back to Bernardo, where Bernardo should do better. Yang looks really good. Unleash him, I say, next season. I want to see more from him.
Yeah, there's a lot of players getting unleashed here. I'm noticing a lot of unleashed comments in the chat as well. That seems to be the phrase of the day. And I think in terms of Yang, I think we had a conversation at the start of the season. I might not have been on this channel, but we had a conversation at the start of the season about how we want our wingers to have that X factor, that's something different about them. And I think that was an accusation that was levelled at Yang for a long time from ourselves, from myself and yourself and other fans, to be fair. And he seemed too predictable at times in the way that he went about his business. And I think he's got more variety in his game now. He's got a lot of pace, but he's not just running into dead ends. And that's kind of what he was doing before. He's finding better space and he's making better runs with and without the ball. So I agree, he's getting that little bit of X factor that we'd like to see from a winger, and perhaps his attributes that other wingers at Celtic don't have now. And again, it's one of those ones where you're just waiting to see him, what he can do in pre-season now, and if he can push on and impress. Because I agree, I think there's, to go back to the joke at the start, there is a player in there somewhere, it feels like that.
He, I think, he scored 6 or 7 goals this calendar year, and that's not from a lot of game time. That's mainly sub appearances. He missed a few games. If you look at Yang next season, give him good game time, you could be talking, 15 goals potentially.
Yeah, last night was his first start since February. So, we've not seen a lot of Yang. I know he had an injury and that was a factor in that, but I mean, that's his first start for 3 months. So that just shows you how little he actually has played at times. And it also shows that if he can get his first start in 3 months and produce a performance like that, that's again another really good sign that he has the hunger. He's not moping about the place. He's not, moaning that he's not getting as many minutes. He hasn't played for a long time, gets his start and produces an excellent performance on the night.
I just love his hunger to get in at the back post because he wasn't doing that previously. And I compared him previously to Liel Abada, and I think there's certain similarities in the way those two play. Abada was a brilliant player for us. If we get a similar level from Yang at some point, then we're going to be delighted.
What was so good about Abada was he was just an excellent finisher. He was an excellent, he got into those positions even, and he would just, you trusted him to stick the ball away. And he was good at that from his very first minutes in a Celtic shirt. That was kind of what set Abada apart initially, was his finishing. So again, if Yang can improve on that aspect of his game, then it's only a good thing.
Luke McCowan as well, I thought, had a good game. Bernardo was a bit quieter. McGregor was all right. Just generally, I mean, we're talking about a number of players here: Kenny, Yang, Nawrocki. We've mentioned a few other guys. what did we find stuff out generally last night? Did we find out that our kind of players waiting to come in do have something about them, or is it still going to be difficult for these guys because the first team is so strong and a lot of them aren't going anywhere?
Well, I'm surprised you can't see the comments that I've started here to bring into the chat, because just moving on to something that I was going to just bring in, a comment from a viewer there kind of gets into that. So this is going swimmingly, even though you can't see the comments. It's from Charlie McGarvey. He says, every player we keep talking about keeping or developing, the question has to be, is he good enough for the Champions League? And that's, I suppose that's a little dose of reality on the back of last night. Is it's all about progressing to an elite level that is beyond an end of season game at Pittodrie against Aberdeen, who have one eye on the Scottish Cup final as well. It's not a given that these guys are going to be superstars for Celtic. It's kind of not what we're saying, but for me, sometimes you don't know what's going on with some of these guys in the background. You don't know if they're even good enough to perform away from home in the Scottish Premiership. And I think if you find that out, you can at least start to ask the question, well, can they do that consistently? And then can they start to push towards that elite level? So I think we found out last night that a lot of these players have ability, just to go back to your original question. And then it's now about whether they can push on from this. But Celtic supporters at least know, and at least have in their mind, that some of these guys can perhaps do a bit more for Celtic than just sitting on the bench every week. And that is same for Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers is the same as us, and what he's doing, he sees these players every day in training, but he's taken Celtic to Pittodrie last night, a long trip late at night, and for him to see the likes of Johnny Kenny get a goal, Yang perform well, Nawrocki perform well, and McCardle perform well, I think gives him more to think about going forward as well, and that's always good.
Because there was no certainties about that last night. I mean, going away to Aberdeen, you make the team that started. I think potentially only McGregor starts the cup final from that. Excuse me, from that 11 that started last night. So I don't know. Maybe I think to be honest, McGregor's the only one that would probably start the cup final. So they played really well. There was no guarantees that we go up and play so well and score 5 goals and you pass the ball so well. So I think loads of positives going forward. You just want Jamesy to get his goal, don't you?
I know.
But he was asked after the game, wasn't he? You know, and he's saying everyone, all my teammates want me to score and the fans want me to score. And as expected, James Forrest was kind of saying, I'd like to score as well, but the main thing is the team. So I wonder how much it actually matters to him. But he might struggle now. For the first time, I'm starting to think he might struggle, because I don't know if he'll start on Saturday, will he? And I don't think he'll start the cup final. Time's ticking on that. It's good for James Forrest. I think he'll appreciate this kind of. There's a little James Forrest loving at the moment, because this streak thing's a talking point, and people are just appreciating what he's given to Celtic over the years and kind of a squad capacity role. And he's even got a song last night. Now he's brilliant. 15 years.
They're singing his name now, so I'm really happy for him. And he still looks embarrassed. He looks embarrassed in the footage of being pushed in front of the Celtic supporters. He's kind of embarrassed to be talking about all these accolades and being Celtic's most decorated player and this kind of scoring streak. It is a bit wild, but he needs to savour it, because he's still only 33 though. A lot of players play well into their 30s, and the role he's playing, he's not necessarily needing loads of physical effort, so he's got a couple of years left. But I'd love to see this streak ongoing. I love a good streak, Hamish, and it'd be fantastic. I've said that before, not in the sense of invading the pitch with no clothes on, but in the sense of just a long storied talking point that would be good to celebrate. And I think he can still provide that. It'd be fantastic on Saturday if you got it. What a moment that would be in the stadium.
It would. I've got a solution to James Forrest getting older and older and maybe losing a little bit of pace. Just play against Graham Shinney, because that guy has absolutely no pace these days. I couldn't believe. I always thought he used to be a player who was never the quickest, but could get around the park. How slow did he look twice chasing after Jamesy?
Yeah, it made me think, like, if Shinney's playing. I did genuinely think at some point during the last night's game, if Shinney's playing in that cup final, should we start James Forrest at Hampden? Because he just had the absolute beating of him, and he looked terrified of James Forrest in every respect. So that's a wee subplot to keep an eye on. But I said this last night, Hamish, that when James Forrest scored his goal, his first goal for Celtic Sean McCardle was only 2 years old. So that'll make James Forrest feel old, and that make all of us feel old.
When Nakamura scored that famous free kick against Man United, Sean McCardle wasn't even born, which is terrifying. One bit of kind of worrying news, Rio Hatate, Brendan Rodgers, really, really unhappy. Fair to say he was fuming, I think, with Papa Gay, the Aberdeen player, both at the time, and also after the game as well. He said Gay lost his head a bit at the end, came right through Hatate. I must admit, I've not properly got to look back at it. I'm less worried about that and more worried about Rio Hatate's state.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal. It was not a good challenge, especially so late in the game when the game is over. Like, it was just... Aberdeen were definitely in that second half, I felt like, leaving a few tackles in or leaving a few legs in here and there. There was a bit of an edge to the game, and I think, Luke McCowan had pretty rough treatment through the 90 minutes as well, if I recall correctly, going down with a few
Yang as well. Yang was taken out early in the game.
It was part of their game plan, I suppose, to disrupt Celtic's game. But at the end of the game, I thought that was pretty needless tackle, and I think that's pretty much what Brendan Rodgers' point was. The game's over, there's no need to put in a challenge like that. And unfortunately, we don't know the extent of it, but Brendan Rodgers didn't really have an update on that. I think that will come out over the next couple of days, hopefully by the press conference that Brendan Rodgers has tomorrow. But it looks a certainty that Rio Hatate will miss out at the weekend because his knee and his leg was heavily iced up afterwards, so they were definitely taking precaution on that. And then I guess we'll just have to keep our fingers crossed that he's fit for the final, because Rio Hatate's been excellent over the last 6 weeks ago. Since the St Johnstone debacle at McDermott Park, Rio Hatate's been just about our best player, so I would love to see him because I think he can be a real difference maker in that Scottish Cup final.
Yeah, I think he doesn't play on Saturday. You wouldn't risk him anyway, even if he was
available. Risk him. And again, Brendan Rodgers says he does, because he was kind of asked that's a shame for Rio Hatate ahead of the final, and Brendan Rodgers was just saying like he doesn't want to speculate too much, so Rodgers didn't really have an indication either way about whether he would be ready for the final or not.
Yeah, and you really want him to be available. Do you read anything into last night at all? Do you feel any better, or I guess you wouldn't feel worse about the cup final, having seen Aberdeen?
I don't think it has too much bearing. I think that's just a one-off occasion that Aberdeen will be in a totally different mindset for, and Celtic will. But at the same time, so will Celtic. I think. The fact the motivation was so high last night, I think bodes well. I know it was a different group of players, but it's the same squad. It's the same messaging from Rodgers. It's the same hunger from the entire group. And I think it kind of takes care of itself in terms of motivation. It's clear these players want a really strong end to the season, and it's clear that they were damaged in a way, not too badly, but they were clearly took that result, I think, at McDermott Park to heart, and took the criticism around it to heart, and have regrouped and really pushed on. Obviously, we didn't quite get the win at Ibrox, but I think Celtic have been really, really good since then, scoring so many goals, just a deluge of goals, and I think it's really clear that they all want to have a strong end to the season, and I think it's all in service for this cup final. I think that's the message from Brendan Rodgers, both publicly and behind the scenes in the dressing room, is that this period is all about getting everyone in the right headspace, in the right place physically to take on Aberdeen at Hampden, and I think all the signs are that Celtic are definitely in a position to do that. So it's about celebration on Saturday, and then it's a full week build up, and I think it's clear that Celtic have got their eye on that treble.
You really can't argue at all with the form. I mean, I know we started the season really strongly. This is arguably the best form we've been in all season, because you look at the last 6 games. I know we drew at Ibrox, but 24 goals I make it in 6 games. We've hit 5 goals in 4 of those 6. Like that's a ridiculous standard. And to be honest, playing St Mirren on Saturday, you're kind of thinking, we're going to hit another 5, because you just think the team are going to fancy it in that atmosphere. So Saturday's going to be good though, isn't it?
Yeah. Trophy Day is always a good celebration for the supporters. There's the usual Tron Gate shenanigans, which has developed over the years into quite its own thing. And even in the build-up to the
is that going to happen?
Yeah, the Tron Gate's happening.
Yeah. Okay.
The call has been put out by Northcliffe Celtic, so that is happening in some capacity. I remember your videos from a few years ago, Hamish, trying to get interviews in that setting.
Sober. Oh, it was the worst thing ever, dealing with all of those. Probably lots of people watching this who were cutting about. I'd had a few drinks by that stage, and I was sober, hating every minute of dealing with drunk people. As anyone who's ever dealt with a drunk person sober will know exactly how I felt. So glad I'm not involved in that on Saturday, but enjoy yourself if you're going.
Yeah, I think this is a great time of the season, and then, like you said yesterday, we're all going to miss Celtic not playing in just a few short weeks. Yeah. So it's time to soak up what's remaining of Celtic this season, what these players have given, and I think Brendan Rodgers is right. It's a good period to reflect on what the players have actually achieved. Because yes, there's been grumbles along the way, but if you look at the season in its entirety, the amount of goals that Celtic have scored, the attacking flair that Celtic have showed, has been excellent. There was a couple of stumbles in the derby, like I said, but even domestically, Imperious, and even in Europe, just so exciting this season. It was the most exciting season in Europe for over a decade, and I don't think that should really be forgotten either. In all of this, no. I think people need to reflect and think this has been an excellent season to be a Celtic supporter, and one of the best for a while, and kind of like not the end of a journey. It's just that it still feels like Celtic are building towards something, and Brendan Rodgers is building towards the peak version of what his team can be, and hopefully we see that over the summer and into next year too.
Okay, plenty more on the website. I'm just seeing right now every word Brendan Rodgers said after the game last night to the media is up there, and also you've got Ryan's instant analysis from Pittodrie, plenty of other things, and loads going up during the day as well.
Yep, plenty going up, and we've got, like I said, Luke McCowan coming later on his season at Celtic, on Sean McCardle, his first impressions of Sean McCardle being part of the group, lots of stuff. So we're sorted. We've got plenty coming, and Brendan Rodgers' press conference, sorry if you've missed it, is also up on the YouTube channel as we speak, and the Luke McCowan stuff will be going up at 6:00. Someone's just asked me about Jota prints. They are in the process of being delivered. So what happens is, as I said, at the end of that offer at the start of the month, made by Frankie, has to go through a list, and there was a lot of people who signed up, so that's just going to take a while. But essentially, they've all been sent off their printers, and they will be sent out. So if you're still waiting for it, just try and be patient a little bit longer. You can get in touch with me on social media or send me an email, and we'll figure it out. If the delay goes on much longer, but it shouldn't be too long. So just have faith. It is all getting dealt with. Nothing bad is happening. It's getting dealt with.
Good stuff. Okay, I'll head off for now then, John. You'll need to finish the stream. But thanks everyone for watching once again. And I'll be back tomorrow for the final morning briefing of the week. I'll speak to you then.